Now I introduce a basic income into the income leisure model. So this is the basic income you get if you do not work at all. So once again, labor supply is just in the other direction, leisure is here. So in case of 24 hours of leisure time, you get a basic income. And this is the advantage that, at least at first glance, the wage, the price in the labor market does not change, right? So the relative price is unchanged. Now, the problem is you have to finance B. You have to finance the capital income. And how could you finance that? Well, on the one hand, you could finance that by introducing a higher tax rate, and then you end up with a wage tax, an income tax. You could also finance that by a tax on capital, and then you talk about capital income tax. But you could also, in 2020, finance that by a tax on, let's say, digital services. So that's what we call, in the political discussion, a digital tax on the revenues, not on the profits, on the revenues of big tech companies, on platform companies. So this hasn't been feasible 20 years ago, but now it is, and it's a hot topic. And also you could finance that by a, let's say, CO2 carbon dioxide tax on the emissions, on the CO2 emissions, right? On the volume of CO2 emissions. And then we talk about an ecological tax, tax. So if we think about financing issues, now in 2020, this is different to 1970, 1980, 1990. So in the 90s, we had a discussion on ecological tax reform. I even wrote a paper there at that time, 1998 or so, on the ecological tax reform, based on the literature at that time. And the digital tax, that's pretty neat, right? And you could also add some taxes on financial transactions. And so we have more opportunities to finance a kind of basic income, and it has not be, it's not necessary yet that you take all the burden here on labor and distort the labor decision. And that's quite crucial, because only if you put the burden on the price in the labor market, right, then you have these labor supply reactions, right? Then you have the labor supply reactions, which are in the center of all these discussions. But if you manage it, that the tax rate on labor, be more precise, the tax on the price of labor, right, is pretty small, then you won't observe a lot of labor supply reactions. So we should open up our mind and talk about the financing of a basic income on a broader basis, and this is what has to be done, and we should broaden our view, and that's what you could quite easily show here in an income leisure model.